tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Today I'm going to read two talks from Ajahn Sumedho's The Way It Is. The first one is called Beyond Belief, page 101. From the appearance of the five khandhas, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, and the unquestioned belief that they are oneself, it always seems that the mind is in the body, doesn't it? To most people, if you say, "Where's your mind?" they will point to their heads or to their hearts. But if you investigate the way things are, following the teachings of the Buddha, then you begin to realize that the body is in the mind. Mind is really what comes first. The body is just the receptor. It's a sensitive receptor like a radio or radar. It's not a person. It's not anything other than an instrument. When that view of being within the five khandhas is seen through and let go of, then there's a realization of what we can call deathlessness, immortality. These words imply beyond the conditioned, and the ability to conceive the deathless is impossible, isn't it? You can point at a word like deathless or immortal or unconditioned, but beyond that, there's no more that you can say about it because words are themselves conditioned and mortal. Words, concepts, perceptions, conceptions are only appropriate to the conditioned world. As long as you're attached to thoughts and to concepts, to views and opinions, no matter how intelligent and altruistic these views might be, that very attachment will bind you to the conditioned realm. You just keep getting reborn into it. You keep searching for the unconditioned in the conditioned. You keep looking for God in the mortal condition, in the changing nature of sensory consciousness, only to feel totally frustrated and disappointed. Then you have to support that soul view by a kind of stubborn belief. Beliefs don't change, do they? You can believe in exactly the same things you believed in when you were 5, when you were 50. That belief is a grasping of a perception. There are some beliefs that are very nice, pretty, and sentimental. The romantic and sentimental view of life presents a pretty picture that we can still believe in when we're 80. When my gran died at 75, she still had a 16-year-old girl's emotional development. When she died, she had a boyfriend called Hercules Cavalier, who was her gigolo. She still had the same kind of romantic longings as when she was a 16-year-old girl. So even though at 75 she was a physical wreck, yet the mind was still attached to those pretty pictures of youth. We assume and believe, and never question the prejudice and fixed views that we're grasping, that never change. They don't change, we keep reaffirming the same old things over and over. And that's why so many political problems arise. It's because so many people hold on to political views rather than try to be aware of the needs of a particular time and place. How much violence and meanness and nastiness is done in the name of property alone? And boundaries. This is my land, get off my land. You see it all the time in the endless border problems of countries. Then the meanness of heart, not wanting to let people in or not wanting to let people out because of the unquestioned belief, this is my house, my family, my wife, my husband, my children, mine. Over the course of 20 years of meditation, I can see that a lot of attachments, obsessions, and tendencies have fallen away because of allowing things to cease. The process has been one of letting things go rather than believing grasping, and becoming reborn in endless thought patterns and desires. When we view life as just a passage, then we're not going to hang on to it. We're not going to become mean and selfish because we realize that nothing is worth holding on to. Any material wealth, property, status, or worldly values or anything. There's nothing worth bothering with that much because it's not really ours anyway. Of course, we can believe that it's ours, but in actual investigation, in looking into the way the mind actually is, we see that nothing really belongs to us anyway. There's nobody to own anything. Now, with the reflection of the body being in the mind, this grasping changes. You have to start contemplating what the mind really is, because your body's certainly not in your brain, is it? It's ridiculous. Nor is your blood pumping heart there in your body. I was standing out this evening and looking at the dusk, at the trees, the barren trees on the borders of Amaravati, just contemplating that the trees are in the mind and that trees are conscious. There's a certain level of consciousness in all life, in the fact that there is receptivity to the environment, and trees are very receptive to the environment they're in. One begins to change the perception of mind to one of consciousness that pervades everything. Then it's not just a human mind, there's something more to it. But in Buddhism, it's never named. You never try to form a concept about it. Instead, you contemplate the totality, the whole sensitivity, the sensory realm, and what it is really all about. And this we have to contemplate from our own ability to be conscious and to feel, but not seen in terms of me and mine. I feel these things, but nobody else does, or only human beings do when animals don't, or only mammals do and reptiles don't, or only the animal and insect kingdoms do, but not the plants. Consciousness does not imply thought, but it does imply receptivity to what is impinging, to what comes to it. We begin to see that consciousness is a vital, changing, universal system. It's like a plenum. It's full with all possibilities and all potentials of form, of what can be created. Whatever we can think of, we can see it in terms of the human ability to imagine, through which we can create all kinds of fantasies that come into material form. But the greatest, most profound, and meaningful human potential is overlooked by most people, and this is the ability to understand the truth of the way it is, to see the Dhamma, to be free from all delusions. When you are contemplating reality, begin to reflect on where there is no self. Whenever there is a cessation of self, there is just clarity, knowing, and contentedness. You feel at ease and balanced. It takes a while to be able to give up all the striving and restless tendencies of the body and mind. But in moments, that will cease, and there's a real clarity, contented peacefulness. And in that also, there is no self, no me and my, and you can contemplate that. We must recognize that we have to learn through being totally humbled, by never succeeding in anything we're doing in this meditation, by never being successful, never getting what we want. If we do get what we want, we lose it right away. We have to be totally humbled to where any form of self-view is relinquished willingly, graciously, humbly. And that's why in meditation, the more it comes from willpower based on a self-view and on me achieving and attaining, then of course you can only expect failure and despair, because this is not a worldly pursuit. In worldly situations, if you are clever and strong, gifted and have opportunities, and the conditions are there, you can barge your way through and become a great success, can't you? With the survival of the fittest, you can manage to get above and destroy the competition. You can be a winner. But even a winner on the worldly plane is still going to be a failure, because if you win something, you're going to lose something too. Winning and losing go together. So winning is never as wonderful as it might look, is it? It's more the anticipation of winning. If you've actually won something, so what? You have a moment of elation, maybe. I'm a winner. But then, now what do I do? What do I have to win next? Winning, worldly goals, and worldly values are really not going to satisfy us. So if we apply that same attitude toward the religious life, it's just not going to work. We just feel a sense of total despair, helplessness, because we need to lose everything, to let go of everything. All hope, all expectations, all demands, to where we can just be with the way things are and not expect or demand them to be otherwise. The practice of the Buddha is to accept life as it is. This is the way it is. Our reflection as mendicants is that we have enough to eat, robes to wear, a roof over our heads, and medicine for illness. The Dhamma and Vinaya are taught. It is good enough, therefore we begin to say, it's all right, I'm content. And not make problems or dwell on the irritations and frustrations that we find here. I find myself now much more at ease with letting life be as it is here in Amaravati, and with the way things are, with the weather, with the people, with the country. Not to compare it, not to judge it, but to be grateful for the opportunity and to be accepting of whatever it is. And it isn't all that easy, believe me, because I can be quite critical too, and fussy. There's also a strong sense of responsibility in wanting to make things right and work properly. Not just wanting nice things for myself, but wanting to make everything right and good for everyone else. I can really be caught up with responsibility, being an Ajahn and an abbot and all that. You try to set a good example, and you get obsessed with that. I always felt I had to be a kind of cardboard monk, a plastic Sumedho bhikkhu. If you saw anything other than the perfect smile and all that stereotype presence, then you lose all faith in the Dhamma. So we begin to let go of that, even the altruistic tendencies of feeling responsible. It doesn't mean that one is irresponsible, but one is letting go of those ideas, those views that can be so blinded by. They might be very good views, but if you grasp them, you can't get beyond them. In living the holy life, you train yourself to being open and willing to learn from the ups and downs and the way things happen to be, the irritations and problems of community life and the way things are, rather than resist, avoid, and reject life. You give up controlling and manipulating and trying to change the world and make it into what you want it to be. One has to give up, let go of that kind of inclination and abide in the knowing, in the mindfulness. In practice, just notice if you're trying too hard. If you've got the view that you have to stay awake, that can make you compulsive. The I have to stay awake compulsion. Notice if you attach to either extreme, like I have to stay awake or it doesn't matter. You can use one to counterbalance the other. If you tend to think it doesn't matter, you need to practice I must stay awake. But if you're caught in the I must stay awake compulsion, you can say it doesn't matter, let go. Neither one is a fixed position. They're just skillful means to find the middle, the place of balance. You don't come in here and say, it doesn't matter, let go, that's my practice, and then fall over asleep because it doesn't matter. It's all Dhamma, sleeping Buddha, awake Buddha. There's also the compulsive, I don't want to fall asleep, it matters so much to stay awake. Ajahn Sumedho says you come here to be awake, not to fall asleep. Then, one can become caught in the compulsion to be awake. The knowing is the knowing of what's driving us, what we're attached to, where the attachment is, and it does take patience to see it and to acknowledge it. One of the factors of enlightenment is devotion and emotional sweetness and joyfulness. We tend to want everything on the level of intellectual concepts, but we also need to humble ourselves towards the joy and sweetness of loving the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha, especially if we find our practice is getting a bit dried up. This is to advise you not to be frightened of loving and joy and open-hearted generosity. Human life without this is a dreary desert, isn't it? Just like living in a museum. It's all nice and clean with marble corridors, but cold, ordered, cataloged. In museums, everything is dusted and put in order, but it's cold. So religion also gives us this opportunity towards this warmth, the joy, the love, the devotion, the offering, the giving. This is very much a foundation and a necessity for religious life. See our life here in the community as an opportunity to manifest generosity, love, and joy, not just as an obsession with looking at our chitta to see what is moving through it at this moment, seeing that it's anicca, dukkha, anatta. We do that in order to reflect on the way things are, to be free from the illusions or the attachments to love and generosity. Because if you attach to concepts of love and generosity, then that will also bring you to despair. For this retreat, the lay people have come to give, to help the Sangha. This is their act of love and generosity. And so our appreciation for that act of generosity is our determination to practice, to realize the Dhamma, so that our lives will be a blessing to the lay community. We can reflect on it in this way, not to take the situation for granted in any way whatsoever, but to allow space for the joy and the gratitude that one feels. These qualities help provide the foundation for our understanding of freedom from delusion. This next talk is called Non-Dualism, page 115. The significant offering of the Buddhist teaching lies in what we call non-dualism. It's the neither nor approach to philosophical questions. Monastic religion tends to talk about the one God or the whole, or the Buddha nature or the one mind. That's very inspiring. We turn to monistic doctrines for inspiration, but inspiration is only one level of religious experience, and you have to outgrow it. You have to let go of the desire for inspiration, or the belief in God, or in the oneness, or in the one mind, or the all-embracing benevolence, or in the universal fairness. I'm not asking you to disbelieve those things either, but the non-dualistic practice is a way of letting go of all that, of seeing attachment to the views and opinions and perceptions, because the perception of one's mind is a perception, isn't it? The perception of a universal benevolence is a perception that we can attach to. The Buddha nature is a perception. Buddha is a perception. The one God and everything as being one universal system, global village. All is one and one is all, and everything is fair and everything is kind. God loves us. These are perceptions that might be very nice, but still they are perceptions which arise and cease. Perceptions of monistic doctrines arise and cease. Now, what does that do as a practical experience? when you let things go and they cease? What's left? What's the remainder? This is what the Buddha is pointing to in teachings about the arising and cessation of conditions. When the perception of self ceases and all the doctrines, all the inspired teaching, all the wise sayings cease, there is still the knower of the cessation. And that leaves us with a blank mind. What is there to grasp? So the desire to know, to have something to grasp, comes up. We can see a panic in our minds sometimes. We've got to believe in something. Tell me about the universal benevolence. But that's fear and desire operating again, isn't it? I want to believe in something. I need to believe in. I want to know that everything's all right. I want to attach and believe in the perceptions of oneness and wholeness. And so there is still that desire operating which you may not notice and may still be attached to. That's why the religious experience is one of despair. In the story of the crucifixion, the most impressive statement Christ made was, "Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me?" What happened to that father that was protecting Jesus? Even God left him. Now, that's an anguished cry, isn't it? The one perception, me, could count on suddenly dissolved in his mind. And after that, of course, is the acceptance and then the resurrection. The being born anew to be free from all that illusion, from all that attachment to God, attachment to the doctrine, and attachment to the highest ideas, the finest values. All these things are still very good and praiseworthy, but it's through attachment that we suffer, because if we attach to any perception, we're not realizing the truth. We're just attaching to a symbol and grasping the symbol to be the reality. If I said, you see the Buddha sitting up there on the shrine? That is the real Buddha. That is Buddha. You'd think, Ajahn Sumedho has really gone off. Yet we can still attach to a perception of Buddha as Buddha, can't we? We're not at the stage where we're going to believe that the vast statue is Buddha, but we can be very attached to a view about Buddha. And it might be a very nice view also, just like that Buddha Rupa. It's a very nice Buddha Rupa, isn't it? I like that Buddha. It's very beautiful. It doesn't mean that we have to get rid of it, because Buddha Rupas do not delude. What is dangerous is our attachment to a perception of self, of others, of Buddha, of God, of oneness, or of wholeness. When you can actually free your mind from attachment, then all these particular angles are valid. We're not condemning monism as wrong, but attachment to monistic doctrine is limiting and blinding, just like attachment to non-dualism. The purpose of non-dualism is really a tremendous pointing at attachment. But if you're just a philosophical non-dualist, then you can be attached to an attitude of annihilation. I'm not asking you to attach to a position of non-dualism, but I've asked you not to try to inspire your mind or to read about inspired monastic teaching in various other religions during this retreat, because in order to really learn how to use this particular tool, you have to use it and observe the results. And it can seem pretty barren, but we have to let go of that need for inspiration right up to the point of despair. We have to learn to accept that emptiness, that silence, the cessation, the loneliness, the lack of warmth, and not ask for benevolence and kindness. We have to open to the silence and contemplate it, learning from it rather than running away from it, to look for a warm mother or a safe father. Then one way you can describe this holy life is a growing up of an individual being to that maturity where we no longer linger in the warmth of adolescence or childhood or in the pleasures of the world.